was always trying to push the boundaries of photography. It's such a process-orientated concept that photographers putting objects onto a photocopy would say, oh, that's not photography. But it's the expression of what you're trying to say. As a photographer, you're just privileging sight, and then after a while you think, well, I'm not representing the landscape that I'm in. So then as I came to the tropics, I became more sensitive to senses. So with this particular book, it's about the coral sea, so it's mainly blue to get the feeling of the sea. And we've collected the found objects from the sea. So with this particular one, I really love the way it just opens. And that surprise you get when you go to the sea and the tide comes in, the tide goes out, and then you find these lovely little corals, all different types of corals. So these corals were used to do photograms in the book. And you've got the dark blue, some images. The brush mark's important as part of the process. It becomes horizon line, so it's an abstraction. Just the way you put the emulsion on. The thickness of emulsion, thinness and thickness. A bit like sumi painting, there's a brush mark, but that becomes a horizon line for the coral. And then we come to the white pages, which is silence that speaks, and your own imagination will carry across. So with the process, because it's part of the Gestalt theory about connecting parts together, these were done on one large sheet of photographic paper, cyanotypes as emulsions applied, exposed to the sun and developed in water, and then evenly cut down to the same size. So the photogram is actually when you put an object onto paper and just expose it to light. But as I pushed it a bit further, I actually put it onto a photocopier. So with the photocopier, you get this lovely reticulation in the background. So the photogram on the photocopier suited the sea. And with cyanotypes, you're taught how to evenly coat the paper. Because if you unevenly coat it, you get 400 ISO in one corner and you get 100, so you get different density and exposure. So I purposely put uneven cyanotype on it to get that uneven exposure, density of colour. Okay, so we've got the books, they illustrate or represent the sea. And this particular one has got your cyanotype, Van Dyke brown, which are non-silver processes. While the cyanotype's wet, the Van Dyke brown is applied on the top, so you get this lovely merging feeling, just like the sea rolling over the sand. And a photographer just wouldn't do that. You just keep your processes separate, and mixing the two in this lovely illumination is contaminating the chemistry, but that's what's giving you your energy to the image. I love the alchemy of photography, and I love working with landscape, and I love being part of the landscape and the interconnectiveness of landscape. So I love combining them both together. At James Cook University, I did a PhD, and how the idea grew was being the photographer and not satisfied with the image privileging sight on the wall. So then I thought, how can I represent place or get a deeper perception of place? And that's when the idea of involving all the senses to represent place. I spent hours and years walking around the island with a geologist to back the research, looking at the different landforms and why this particular place had a different feeling. At the moment with the sea, you've got the feeling of the freedom, the tide coming in and out, as compared to walking up Mount Cook. So it's practice-led research, so with the experience of place, walking through, having an emotion of place, and then going back and looking at your theorists that talk about place. So when you start to research, there's a whole body of knowledge that activates your thought processes. So Paul Rodaway was phenomenology of body, sense and place. There was Merleau-Ponty, phenomenology of perception. And topophilia which is a love of place. Then you start thinking about place. And so it's a matter of how do you perceive place? And then I look into how do I represent place? And then I think, well, then it comes into the exhibition. So the presentation in the gallery space, it was really important to get the feeling of that I felt while I was in the landscape. So by installing each of the geographic sites and having the activating all the senses in the gallery space. So it was only a small gallery space, so when you walked in, it felt like you were walking into an enclosed area. Like when you're on the island, you are on an island and you're confined. So with the exhibition, it was really important that you felt the pages. Because quite often with artist books, the first thing you do is put on white gloves. And I definitely didn't want any white gloves. So it was like a little ritual. We had a table set up with a cyanotype cloth with bowls of water and towels. So you just came, little signs, washed your hands, dried your hands, and that gave you permission to go and touch any of the 6 books. It's really interesting. Some of them would say, oh, can't touch it. I haven't got time to wash my hands. Can you open the book? I said, no, this is an experience. You go to that book, you open it whichever way you want to, front to back. An artist's book is a book in an art form. It's a visual and sensual touch display. So in the background we had the sound of the waves from Alma Bay playing to intensify the feeling of place. The main idea or point of the exploration for my project was the representation of place is deepened by using all your senses, which means you're producing a multi-sensorial artwork, not just one image on the wall. It's privileging sight.